You'll notice this throughout the tour. There's lots of innovative DIY design here. Jordan is really good at that.
And it all starts right here with these sea container brooders.
So you got some interesting looking gizmos and gears in here.
For feeders, what we use right now, we call these worm feeders. So this is our sow drinker. The platform here on the front is pretty critical. 2 guys with 3 days could entirely build them and have them ready to go. We also wanted it to be multi-species.
If you're out there and you're still wondering if pigs can be used to farm regeneratively, just take a look at this. Hey everybody, welcome to Heifer USA. I'm Tyler Pearson and I'm here with Jordan Green from J&L Green Farm in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, just outside of Edinburgh. We got DIY shipping container poultry brooders. We've got innovative methods of fair-wing pigs out in the forest. We got a unique cattle enterprise that we haven't showcased the method of raising before on our YouTube channel. Okay, so J&L Green Farm, show me just a little bit about what you got going on right here.
So we're right here at the front of our hub farm. So this is kind of where a lot of the activity happens. We do have a gestation and farrowing farm, which is up on the mountain, like 15 miles that way, and another farm that we graze on, but our day-to-day activities and our storefront, order fulfillment, that all happens here at our hub facility. So we've got our house where we live, our farm store, which is right outside, so it's great for Laura to go back and forth and be able to work. And then our brooding facilities are right down in the same area because we got to keep an eye on those all the time. So this is about a 200-acre farm here that we have a lifetime lease on. We don't actually own this particular piece of property.
Okay, gotcha. So you're leasing out the majority of your farmland. How long have you been operating it, did you say?
15 years.
15 years, Awesome. Lifetime lease, that's a great way to get to farming, right?
Yeah, and it's, like I've learned this more and more as the years go on, everything is driven relationally. You can have good relationships with landowners, good relationships with your customers, with vendors, with other farmers. That's really the secret sauce to making any of those type of arrangements work, is the investment into the relationship.
And just real quick, I know we're headed over to your poultry brooders, but tell me, about your poultry operation. How many birds are you doing a year? Where are you marketing them, and how are you kind of running the operation?
Yeah, so all of our meats are directly retailed. We do have some wholesale accounts, but most of that is going out to individual customers, either through drop sites, on-farm sales, or shipping nationwide. This year we're doing about 10,000 chickens, or broiler chickens, and 1,500 turkeys. So that varies year to year depending on how many are in the freezer from last year, and if we've got any kind of new arrangement for the coming year. And it all starts right here with these sea container brooders that we had troubles in the past with brooding in old sheds or old cinder block buildings, of predation being a problem, drafts a problem, crowding of the chicks, etc. And this was a scalable solution to that problem of keeping predators out, being able to have a controlled environment for the birds where we can control air, light, ventilation, to keep that mortality low for the chicks when they're getting started.
And so you've custom fabricated these, right?
Yeah, the inside is a design that we had. Our first one was kind of a prototype, figuring out just how the systems work, using the kind of an innovative process of seeing what works, then building on that, and building on the next thing. And then our second and third brooders, we kind of took the lessons from that first one and applied it to them.
Let's check them out. You want to check them out?
Yeah, let's go.
So you've got some control panels here on the outside. What is all that? I guess that controls all the electrical components.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you have to control to get good brooding of chickens, and turkeys. Of course, you can just have the heat lamp in the corner of the barn, and that works fine for a lot of applications. But when you're brooding thousands of birds at a time, something like 2% mortality starts adding up. And if you can reduce that, what we have to control is heat, ventilation, and light. And those 3 things, outside of their feed and disease issues, are the 3 biggest contributors to success or failure with your birds. So what we have here, obviously power coming in to the container, and then these are thermostat controls for the electric infrared heaters that are inside. This is a fan control, so if it gets too hot, it'll actually start ventilating the container to drop the temperature. And then up here is a percentage timer, and so that will be set, right now it's on a 5-minute 20%. Fix that. So that means every 5 minutes it's going to run for 20% of that time. 1 minute, basically.
Awesome.
So step on in. So when we're starting out with turkeys, they're probably one of the more difficult birds to successfully brood. They have no good instincts about surviving. That's all been bred out of them. They've got about 3 brain cells left. So we have to keep them close to heat, close to water, no corners. We even start out using peat moss as the bedding. We'll do some chips later on because when they're a few days old, they'll eat the wood chips and it will impact their gut and kill them. So these guys are a little over 2 weeks old. They're kind of getting to the phase where they've learned a few things, but still not responsible enough to get the keys from mom and dad. So as they grow, we'll start moving these migration fences back, giving more and more of this container. Till about 5 weeks old, that's when we'll catch them all and put them out to the pasture.
So you keep the migration fences tight knit so they stay close to the feed and water, is that right?
To the heat, primarily.
And to the heat, primarily.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Turkey's instinct when anything is wrong is to pile up. If they're too cold, if they're too hot, if they're stressed, if something scares them, they just want a big dog pile and the guys on the bottom get crushed. That's the most common mortality problem with turkeys in a brooder, is crushing. So we're trying to prevent as much of that as possible.
So you got some interesting looking gizmos and gears in here. Can you kind of tell me just a little bit about the design? Yeah,
so this is just like a little winch that runs a cable system, and what this does is allows us to raise or lower the water line depending on their age. So when they are a day old, it's really close to the ground. By the time they're 5 weeks old, we probably have it a foot off of the ground. So just a crank of that will raise and lower the water system. Okay. We used to run our brooders with having 2 water lines. We found that's really unnecessary, but you'll see we've got 2 winches here. The other lines are just hanging up on the wall. One has worked perfectly fine. So it's just one less piece that we have to have, and that's part of that iterative design process, is trying a model, seeing how much of it you can start taking away and simplify it, because that hallmark of good design is simplicity, not complexity, and that's what we're always looking to do, is make things simpler. And you might notice this bag hanging over at the left is very intentional. Giving the turkeys something to play with will actually decrease your mortality. They get bored in here, and so they'll either start messing with each other, or if you just hang a little bag off the side, they play with that thing 24 hours a day. I can look on the security camera in the middle of the night and there'll be 10, 20 birds around that thing playing with the plastic.
Because they're just curious, they just occupy themselves.
Yeah, anything that's like green or red, especially if they can grab and run around with it, that's what they love, to play with plastic.
What have been your challenges with using these sea containers, and has heat been a problem? Has it gotten too hot in here ever? Heat can be a problem. We get those 95, 100 degree days of direct sun. What we can do is we have screen doors in the front, so we can open that up all the way. We can turn ventilation up to 100%. And that works most of the time, but if we have, say, like broiler chicks that are 20 days old, they're like 1 day before going out and it's really hot, that's not sufficient. And we've solved that problem by putting a garden sprinkle hose, or the drip hose. We put that on top of the containers and we just have evaporative cooling. So we'll just crack that open a little bit on those hot days and just letting water drip off the container. On the outside?
On the outside, up top.
Awesome, cool.
Yep, besides that, again, it's going to be very contextualized to where you are in the country. If you're in the deep south, yeah, these are probably going to be super hot all the time. If you're in the north, you're probably going to have issues with it being really cold and maybe have to go to an insulated floor. So you have to figure out what works in your unique context.
Cool. Okay, where to next?
All right, so we can go check out some Cornish cross broiler chicks. There's another benefit to having these things on wheels, is if we ever need to leave, we can just pack all of our farm stuff in these containers and just hire some truckers to take them down the road the next place they got to go. It's just a simple water hose connection, and then a RV plug like you would have for your camper is how we bring in the water and power.
Let me show that real quick. So, and is this a municipal line, well line? What do you got hooked up here? Well,
yep.
Well, okay.
That's just your basic farm hydrant. And we did have to pay to put in the electric utilities. But again, we can unplug that right from there and take it all away with us.
Okay.
So basically the same setup here, but you can see this is our Mark II version. So we've got this cleaned up a lot nicer, organized. It's kind of that second generation of design. And also different on this one is this whole wall. We can just pull this pin and that whole wall will swing in. So when we clean out the bedding in the, with the last group in the fall, we can swing it open and then use the space for other storage all winter.
So this whole door,
This whole wall.
this whole wall swings open.
Yep.
Wow. So let me just jump in here real quick. So I'm sure you guys are noticing this right off the bat, and you'll notice this throughout the tour. There's lots of innovative DIY design here. Jordan is really good at that. And if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel before, make sure you do. It's called Farm Builder, and there's lots of really great content on there with a lot of his designs. He's got a farm school that he manages also. Let you tell the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, so every fall we have a Farrow to Finish and Marketing School, which is folks coming to see how we do pastured pigs, how we've implemented these concepts of simplicity and kind of doing it yourself and figuring things out, keeping it relatively low cost. And then, like you're saying, the Farm Builder YouTube channel, we've got a couple of videos on how we built these and how we're doing different stuff. Because we want, we don't want to have everyone have to reinvent the wheel. We can definitely help each other.
Well, I know we've used some of your designs out at Heifer Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas, with our pastured pig operation as well, and super cool stuff. So
nice.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, not a problem. Let's step in here.
Okay.
So very different than with the turkeys. Chickens are quite a bit more intelligent. We don't have to confine them around where the heat is. They don't need it as hot. You probably noticed it's a lot cooler in here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still probably 85 degrees on the floor. And these birds are right at a week old. They came in last Monday. And so this is 700 Cornish cross broilers that are in here. And it's warm enough in here, the heaters aren't even on right now.
Yeah, it's much more pleasant in here. It's amazing how much hotter the turkeys need it to be when they're in that brooding phase.
They like it about 100 degrees. Like that. I've almost never seen it get too hot for turkeys.
Definitely seems streamlined and stripped down. I can tell you're talking about your improvements. Got your single water line running over there. Your feeders spaced every so often, and ventilation in the back. And your lights on a timer, I assume?
We don't have the lights on a timer. You can certainly do that. We found the most benefit until we're about 2 days away from pasture. Lights are on all the time, 24 hours a day.
Okay.
Those last 2 or 3 days, we'll start dimming it down at night just so they get used to having low light. Yeah, we didn't talk about that over there, but ventilation is absolutely key for brooders. You need to be bringing in fresh air, flushing out the stale air. Helps with humidity control, and just good quality air. If you step into a brooder and it smells like ammonia, well, your birds are smelling that too, and that can have a direct impact on their health and then their grow out. And you don't want to be raising a high quality product that's breathing ammonia air all its life. So even if it feels like you don't need it, there has to be that continual flush of air periodically coming into the brooder. And that's accomplished with what we call a negative pressure system. So the fan in the back is on a percentage timer that we can adjust as needed. That's exhausting air out. And then behind us, there's vents above the door that's bringing in the cold air. And the reason we bring it in the top is it comes along the top and then it sinks through the warmer air so that by the time it gets down to the floor where the chicks are, it has warmed up from whatever the ambient outdoor temperature is.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. And you're doing, how often are you changing your litter?
Every set.
You're changing it in between every single batch?
Yeah, we clean it out and change it every set. We don't want that composting action from the litter to happen here in the brooder because you get ammonia outgassing and you get heat. And heat during the summer is something that we don't necessarily need a bunch of in our brooders. We need it at night, but definitely not during the day.
Well, it's very pleasant. I mean, I could sleep in here, It's not bad at all.
I've slept in worse conditions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, super cool. And is it tricky to clean out your litter here?
No, so we'll just sweep the bedding back enough that we can open that whole door, and then we can just take the tractor with a bucket, and we can almost have that bucket in the corner here. And just 2 guys with shovels can clean this out in 20 minutes.
So, because this whole door swings open from
that
there
whole door
all the way open.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that's our cue.
All right, 5 minutes is up.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to say about these designs?
Yeah, not too much. You know, if we put in a fourth one at some point here, it'll basically be the same. We've been really happy with these designs, very minimally maintenanced to keep them going. I know some people are using propane heating systems in them. We're using electric, but you know, it's kind of whatever works for you. If you're in an area that doesn't have utilities, you could throw a solar panel on top of these for your low voltage LED lights, and then use the propane, which is your more energy, you know, consumptive part of that. Use propane to heat them. So I know some people that are doing them kind of off-grid style.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that if you thought about how that could be done.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people will be curious about that.
Yeah, so they're doing solar for the lights. I don't know how they would do the fan. You might have to have like a battery system to have that amperage kick that you need for the fan to start, or you're just using low voltage fans. But then, you know, heat is what consumes the most power. They're using propane
Propane
instead
is
of
probably
electric.
the most efficient way to do that, yeah, or at least in those.
If you got to have a dual utility system. The reason we went with electric was we were already putting power in these. So why plumb a whole nother utility system in?
And did you say that in the winter time you're not raising poultry and you're cleaning these out and you're utilizing them, right?
Yeah. So in the fall, when we're done with that last set, we'll clean it out, pressure wash it out, you know, kind of get it all nice for the winter, and we can leave these main doors open to use the space for other storage. So we'll put like pallets of minerals in there, or you know, stack lumber or something that just needs a short-term place. Yeah. Under a roof we can throw inside these units.
Something to get it out of the elements from.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And is this your entrance to your third one right here?
Yeah, so this is the third one yet. It doesn't have a deck.
Gotcha.
It's kind of on that endless list of farm projects that's never quite the highest priority to deal with.
Sure.
So we've just got a little ladder to scamper up and down that one.
So not a necessity to have a deck, but I imagine it's a convenience for loading and unloading maybe, or?
It's definitely nice for the day-to-day chores. Actually, that one is easier to load birds out of because we can back the crate trailer right up to it. Whereas this one, we have to slide them out onto the deck and then onto the trailer.
Hey, look at that.
So, yeah, everything's got its pluses and minuses. And, you know, we've got a bunch of young people working here, so scampering up and down a 4-foot ladder is not the difficulty that it might be for some folks.
That is the brooder operation here in a very quick nutshell. Really innovative stuff. Where are we headed to next, Jordan?
So we're going to take off for a hike around the farm, see what we discover, but the first thing that should be coming up is a group of gilts that we just put boars in with about a month ago. So they're kind of in that early gestation period. They just came out of the pasture where they were raised and grazed all winter and spring, and now they're in the woods, which is where we really like to have our pigs during the summer, so they're not suffering from the heat and digging holes in the pasture and all that. So we have about 90 sows that we actively manage, a varying number of feeder pigs depending on what the needs are from the retail side that we will finish out for slaughter. We harvest about 50-60 beeves a year, and we'll do about 10,000 broilers and 1,500 turkeys. So about $1 million a year in gross revenue is kind of where we're at right now.
Awesome. And how much labor does it take? I know it fluctuates, I'm sure, throughout the season.
Right.
What does that look like for you?
Right now we have 3 full-time people besides Laura and I. And then we have a collection of part-time people that either come in on the weekends or supplement in for the butcher crew.
Awesome. All right, so what are we looking at here?
So behind me we are on what we would call our hog ranges, which are areas that we manage pigs in the woods. This is an area that pigs just moved away from here an hour or so ago. And this was a 4-day disturbance on this particular spot. So you can see, especially when we look the other way, what the forage looks like on the level of disturbance that they'll get in just a couple days.
So they were only on this one for 4 days, yeah?
Yep, that's a 4-day disturbance.
And then
then coming over here, if you can see past all of the stuff we have camped out here, you know, this is what it looked like 4 days ago.
Amazing.
So, you know, pigs, they graze a lot, they disturb a lot. The key is the management of them, which usually comes down to the movement. You know, we have stocking densities and genetic selection and, you know, all that stuff like anywhere else, but the key thing is movement. That is where pigs are either going to help do something with your landscape or absolutely destroy it.
What indicators do you use to determine when you move them?
A lot of times we do it by calendar, and what we have done is adjusted our paddock sizes and group density to correspond to that calendar move. Now this is a little bit bigger group. This is over 30 gilts that are in here, and there's 4 boars with them right now. So they're moving a lot more than typically would. You know, most of our sow sets move once a week. These guys are moving like every 4 days right now.
And just real quick for our audience that might not know, can you just briefly describe those terms, sow, gilt, and boar?
Yeah, so a gilt is an unbred or a just bred female. That's before she's had her first litter. A sow would be a mature gilt. And then a boar obviously is Big Daddy.
Awesome. So just describe your setup here for me.
So what we would call a hog range, where we manage most of our pigs, are forest and rough areas, you know, that have grown back in, that we've put an infrastructure in of road access and a water system. Outside of that, we're using what we call a zero footprint model, that when the pigs are not here, you wouldn't know they were here. You know, there's no fence. The fence moves with the set as they move along. So we don't have a bunch of double high tensile fences running everywhere, or those kind of shorter hog fences. This single strand of electric is what we've trained these pigs to by this phase of their life. See it right there. And you know, if they're with the program of single strand fence, then they get to stay on the farm. If they're not, they don't stay on the farm. So
Are all these farrowed here on the farm?
Yep, these are all born or bred and born here.
Awesome.
We've had a closed herd for probably over 10 years at this point. So this is, you know, about 10 years of genetic work with our own closed pool.
Awesome. Do you source piglets for other farmers? I know people will want to ask.
Yeah, that's most of what we do with our sow groups, is selling piglets to other farms.
Awesome.
That was a real need in the market here in Virginia when we started producing pork. And so we figured out that we needed to farrow our own. A lot of other places had that same problem, so we've been able to you know, supply other farms with piglets along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how can farmers get in touch with you if they want to contact
they
you about
can,
it?
yeah, definitely hit us up on jlgreenfarm.com. We've got all of our contact info there. I would say if you want piglets for like 2027, you can talk. You know, we stay booked out pretty far because we cater to farms that need bigger groups of piglets. You know, it's easy to go find half a dozen here and there, but we're trying to cater to farms who need 50 or 100 at a time.
Okay. And how long do you let your pasture or paddocks rest usually in between moves?
So this will only be touched by pigs twice a year. You know, maybe 3 times if something happens. You know, we need some extra space. This part of the hog range we are now beginning to integrate cattle with as well. So this has been grazed once this year by cows, and this is the first time this year that the pigs have come through. We'll probably be able to hit pigs one more time in the fall with it. For feeders, what we use right now, we call these worm feeders. Basically just your standard plastic 50-gallon barrel cut in half. And if you want to come over here, they are strung on here like you would, you know, put fish on a stringer, that there's this chain running up through there, and then that anchors it to a tree. Because of course you put little feeders out for pigs, they're gonna scatter them to the wind.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw them out there. I thought,
yeah, how are those staying there? Well, they are tethered to the trees, so they are not going anywhere.
Okay, so yeah, you got like a tow strap or tow cable or something real thick. And
yeah, just a little 6-foot tow strap connected to that chain, and so they can push it wherever they want as long as it's tethered to the tree.
And because they're all tethered together, they're not as easy to flip over, I guess?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, they'll flip some over, but not when they've got food in it.
Cool.
And, you know, in the morning, we can just, if they've got it pushed up into a pile, we just pull it back out. We can dump their feed in, and they're off and going.
And so I see you got 6 of these, and they look to be, what are they, 50-gallon drums?
Yeah, it's your standard plastic barrel. Again, we found a source of them for free, so that's always, I love free stuff. And we can get them, put them together, and we've got like, you know, the most expensive thing is the chain, but the chain will last forever. When the barrels wear out, we can just unhook it off the tow strap, de-string them, replace whatever barrels are busted, and we're back in business.
That's awesome design.
So very, very simple. We used to use, and we still got videos on the YouTube channel of a tire feeder that was like a pressure treated platform with tires bolted onto it. That worked moderately well. The problem was the pigs were flipping them on the fence all the time, and it was difficult to move them without a machine. So we wanted to get to where pig moves could happen on our gestating and farrowing farm without a tractor or a skid steer being there. It's basically two guys with a Gator UTV could do all the pig moves. So these are easy enough just to grab and pull, and then our water, we have a little dolly that we can pick that up with. So we want about one barrel section, one of these for every 2 pigs. So we've got about 30 in here, so we have 18 barrels here, roughly about that much, so they can all spread out and have enough space to eat.
And are you transporting your feed by hand, just dumping it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So every morning when we do chores with the sows, they are on ration diets. So we have the Gator that we'll load up with feed, and we know how many buckets each set is going to get of feed. And it's also giving us that eyes-on management every day of the pigs are used to you being here. You see what's going on with the fence, with the water, make sure everything is golden and good to go. They get their breakfast, and then they're off and going for the day.
Awesome. Well, they look really healthy and very content out here.
Yeah, they're happy to be in the woods now.
Absolutely, absolutely. What else you got out here?
So we'll look at the water over here.
While we go check out the waters, you mentioned that you're doing a lot of, selective genetics, breeding. People are going to want to know what breeds you use, and how would you describe the breed that you have out here now?
It's a super special and rare breed. We started out predominantly with Duroc and Hampshire. There was a little bit of Yorkshire in those earlier genetics, but we've gotten away from the Yorkshire influence as a color. They had problems in the sun with sun scald and sunburn, so we have a lot of red and black predominantly in our coloration. That's really not what we're looking for though. With the gilts, it's body type, attitude, conformation. Once they farrow that first litter, what's their mothering instincts look like? How are they growing out? Stuff like that.
Very nice.
Adaptability to the management system is probably our #1 criteria, that the pigs got to work with how we manage them in order for everyone to be kumbaya about it. If they're not down with being respectful with single strand fence, and they're running off every time they get the hankering to go somewhere, that's not the kind of pig that we want to have. And that is something that can be influenced genetically. We've certainly got better at managing pigs, but also over the last 15 years of doing this, our breakouts get fewer and fewer every year, because I think we are selecting animals that are compliant and compatible with the management system. So you'll find as we go around, Tyler, I really love IBC tanks.
Yeah.
We use them for all kinds of stuff. So this is our sow drinker. And so we have the IBC tank with the hole cut in it. We have this PVC here that keeps them from tearing up the bottom. And you can see that's a stem coming down with just a simple fish tank float valve on it. And that's what regulates our water height inside the drinker. The platform here on the front is pretty critical, so they're not digging a hole here and trying to excavate out a little wallow pond. They got to step on the platform if they want to get a drink. And this can move along with them as they go.
Gotcha. And did you run water lines across the property, or how does that work?
Yeah, along most of our roads on the farm is a water line. We have about 17,000 feet of water line on this farm. And so about every 150 feet, you'll see, I probably can't see it on the camera, we got that little orange stake over there in the grass. That's where we know where the hose bib is, and we can just plug in.
Benefits of farming in the same location for 15 years, you get to make those type of improvements over time, makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's probably the most rewarding or beneficial piece of infrastructure if you're going to do any type of pasture management on a farm, is to put a water system in. That ability to have water where you need it, and you're not toting water around all the time or bringing animals back to a central watering point. That's really what will take your pasture or forest management kind of to the next level when it comes to distributing disturbance.
And that's not concrete though, right?
No, it's pressure treated.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. So this whole thing's portable as well?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole platform will fold up. You got a chain right here that'll hook onto it. If we're moving them, here on the home place where we have machinery, we'll just bring a skid steer out and pick it up and move it. But if it's on a farm where we don't have any equipment, we'll just drain all the water out of it. We got a little dolly that can slip in it, and kind of like a little hand cart thing, and then we can just take it over to the next paddock.
Gotcha. Okay, and so that's a valve, right? Is that a pressure valve in there?
Yeah, so that's just
And it's just filling up. Did they move it recently?
they just moved them here a couple hours ago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep,
So it's just filling up. People might
Correct.
think, oh, is that leaking? No, it's just filling
No.
up, right?
Yeah, it'll fill up till it hits the little floaty, and then it'll cut it off.
Awesome. Well, they look like they're enjoying their new paddock out here quite a bit. And
Oh, yeah.
how many days do you think you'll leave them in here?
It's probably about a 6-day paddock. This is a little bit bigger than the one they just came out of. And we'll kind of gauge from their disturbance on this one how fast we're going to move them through here. This part of our hog range, like I was saying before, we've integrated cattle grazing into it as well. So we're actually running them through here to disturb the soil so we can overseed it with forage sorghum.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you if you're doing any type of seeding after you rotate the pigs out.
Yeah, we always overseed paddocks. This time of year, we've switched over to those high-value summer annuals. So we use a lot of pearl millet and forage sorghum is our dominant one.
Well,
so we want to get that in, move the pigs across, get that seeded in, so we'll have that forage for the cattle in the hot later part of the summer. We're farrowing all the time because we have multiple, what we call sets of sows. So each sow set is 12 to 16, 17 animals, and they are autonomous from every other set that's on the farm. So they have their own hog range that they're rotating around and their own breeding schedule. So we bring the boars to the sows. They all get bred roughly at the same time. They all farrow roughly at the same time. And then we wean their piglets at the same time. So we have those sets offset from each other. So, you got a January and June set. You got a February and August set, a March and September set, when they're farrowing. So 2 farrowings per set per year is the standard.
What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about starting a farrowing operation?
Get really good at a feeder operation first. It's learning how to manage either feeder cattle or feeder pigs and grow them out successfully is kind of the first challenge. Learning to run a birthing enterprise is a completely different and next level type of challenge. So usually you don't get into farrowing because it's a highly profitable thing. You're doing it because you need to solve a quality and quantity issue for your own farm. And we're just doing it at a little bit of scale to give us some efficiency. But primarily it's for us. We just do more of it to have a little bit more cash flow from selling piglets to other farms.
So I want to take just a second to show people just how lush and beautiful this forested paddock is. Silvo. I mean, it's amazing. Look at that. That looks gorgeous, Jordan. And you're running pigs through here as well. And this is what it looks like after it's been overseeded and had plenty of time to grow.
Well, and this has also been grazed by cattle one time this year.
Oh, wow.
So back in early April, we ran the cow herd through here, and this was, grazed off like you would any other piece of pasture.
I mean, it's really incredibly beautiful to see, and not what you typically see when you're in a forest,
Right.
Because
especially a forest with pigs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the undergrowth is always always really thick. The forest floor is, usually full of decay or whatever. And this is just lush.
Yeah. So when we first moved here and started doing pigs in this area, you could not walk through here. Like there was multiflora rose bushes up in the trees, just thick, full of scrub.
You still got some deer living back here. I see one hopping off back there.
We have so many deer. Like I am running a barley-fed venison fattening operation here as well. Like they are everywhere out here because we're generating all this forage that wouldn't naturally be here. We also have a lot of wild turkeys. Like right now the hens are nesting, so you'll see them run through the grass because they eat the barley heads as feed, and then you'll see these little disturbances through the grass, which is all their poults running after them. So I really like bringing folks to this area and another area that we've turned into a silvopasture that we use the sows for several years to knock down all the underbrush, get rid of the multiflora rose, and then we're coming in and thinning that canopy out by removing the diseased and dying trees, the lower quality species, to promote the ones that we want for the pigs and as for shade. And so what you're seeing here is the result of this would be about 8 years that we've had sows running in an area like this. A combination of using the animals and then, using our effort as well to improve the landscape into a silvopasture.
Yeah, just breathtaking. If you're out there and you're still wondering if pigs can be used to farm regeneratively, just take a look at this. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, management is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I visited a lot of pig farms around the country, and the ones that are doing it right, you can see the results, and it's derived from good management practices. But just as conversely, you can do it wrong, and it looks bad. It looks bad. So, extensive ground rest, is the key. So
you're cleaning up the forest floor, you're clearing out the canopy, you're getting extra sunlight in here.
Yep.
You ran pigs through it several years to do a lot of that work.
Right.
Once you got it cleared out enough, then you could start running through different enterprises.
Yep.
Run your cattle through.
Yep.
And now it's really going to be off to the races when you start running cattle through it, right?
Yes, that adds that extra layer of income to the acreage. And also, I think a lot of the future of grazing in the South, which, Virginia's barely the South, but we'll call it the South, is going to be in the shade. It's incredibly hot on these pastures in July, August, and September, and you can see cows suffering out there. So either we can have a bunch of very expensive shade structures that go along with them, or we can develop grazing areas that are already naturally in the shade by using silviculture.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of that. I mean, it's just amazing how cool it is here, in the shade.
Yep.
And how much forage availability there is, despite it being in the shade.
Right.
That really is just incredible to see. I mean, there's as much forage here as you would find out in a large field, just about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's waist high almost in some places.
Yep. Yeah, and we're even getting areas where orchard grass is coming in now. And those perennial grass species that you really like to see. And then a wide variety of just natural stuff that'll come up as well. This is our set with piglets. So I'll try to get their attention, make sure they know we're here.
Okay.
Piggies!
Because they got piglets, so you don't want to startle them too much.
Not necessarily because they have piglets, but sows get very used to sounds. So like if we were sitting on our John Deere Gator and riding up here, it'd be absolutely no problem. If we drove by on a UTV they had never heard before, they would panic. And they would just all run to the back of the paddock. Same as with walking, that they're used to humans being around, but not the humans walking up on them. So very habitual animal, even down to just the sounds that they hear. So when we're walking around, if we can just get their attention first and they can see us and they're like, oh, it's those safe humans, not the Sasquatches, we're okay.
I heard Bigfoot lives in Virginia, so.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. So in this set, I think there's 14 or 15 in this group. And this set is this is their last farrowing. These are 4-year-old sows. So when they're done with these piglets, the sows are all getting called out.
Gotcha.
So some of them didn't even breed. Yeah, it's always when you get to that end of their productive life cycle, so you try to get that one more farrowing out of them. But you're fighting a losing battle with sows against time, that they get fat, out of condition, can't breed, etc. So this is the last rodeo for these girls.
So what we're looking at here, how do you got it set up?
So right now, this is what we would call a cutback paddock, because they started farrowing over here last week, and it's hard to get ones with new piglets to move right away. So when we move the set to the new area, we have a cutback to where the nests were, and then they'll start working their way over to the new paddock. Once they're over and in here, probably could have been done today or tomorrow, we can just run this wire around and close them entirely into the new area. So this would be one that hasn't farrowed yet. So she's just...
Yeah, she's still got a very large belly going on here.
Yeah, so she's probably wondering why we did not bring peanuts.
And, I see your electric fence here is, you got a good 1.5 feet or so. You don't have any trouble with the piglets running off or anything? I guess they stay close to mom?
Well, that's a great question. And when we started farrowing, that was a question that we tried to figure out until we started asking the right questions. All right, so we're here in the middle of the woods, in the middle of our farm, basically. Why do we need to fence the piglets in? Who cares if they run out a little bit? And so that was kind of the breakthrough, was we don't need to fence the little guys, we just got to fence the sows. And as the piglets grow, they might go maybe 50, 75 yards away from the sow set. But any little thing that scares them, they're going to thunder back to mom. You know, they'll be back here most of the time, and then they'll forage out every now and then. You know, about 7, 8 weeks when we wean them, we're catching them up, and then we're putting them into more of a solid weaning pen where they'll learn what fence is, and we can start training them to electric fence there. But while they're here with the moms, it's not something we're worried about.
So 7, 8 weeks, that's when you're going to put them in that weaning
Yeah,
pen.
that's when they'll get caught and weaned out.
Interesting.
We can step in if you want.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
See what these guys
Now
are
that they're
doing.
used to us?
Yeah, we should be fine. Piggies. Oh, you shush. So she's kind of telling me she's not 100% thrilled with me being here.
Yeah, I understand.
But that's fine. Just a little woofing like that means that she actually cares about her piglets.
Yeah.
And
Good mothering instinct.
yeah, she'll do that to any coyote that might come along and want to get a little bacon bit. So that's not an aggressive level that would be a problem for us.
What kind of behaviors and traits are you looking for just for healthy behaviors of the piglets?
You know, right now, certainly being curious like this, their ears being, you got one about to sniff your back there.
That's all right. I'm used to these guys.
You know, they're acting vigorous when they're moving around. They're not, you can see when a piglet's sick, it's just very droopy. You know, in their face would be kind of the first thing. So this is a pretty healthy group of piglets here. If they stop being able to nurse or start getting really skinny. So, what you doing there, bubs? Yeah, if it's in the winter, we'll try to be a little bit more strategic about where we have them farrow, and we have farrowing shelters that we'll use. But like back here, it's hot right now, so they're gonna bring their piglets out into the cool dirt. But we will set round bales of straw when we know they're about to farrow in different spots and let the sows tear them apart and build nests if they want to. Some do, some don't. You know, if she decides to farrow under that tree over there in the dirt, we'll just bring some straw over and straw her nest.
It's like hay bombing, but with pigs. You know?
Yeah, basically. And then, you know, the nice thing is we don't have to clean that up. It just stays here, decomposes into the forest. Yeah, back when I was working in those poultry houses, that was like a huge deal, was cleaning those out, and it took days to weeks and was a big mess. It's a lot nicer when all the manure and the bedding and everything just stays behind when you move the animals away, and you don't have to clean it up.
So tell me about the design of your mobile range coops here, how you came up with it.
Yeah, so we needed something, the big things that we were going for was we wanted something that was all weather. It could handle pretty much any weather conditions that you could have here. We've had a tornado come by this area and scattered Salatin shelters like up in the trees and made a big mess. We needed something that could handle most weather events that are going to come by. We also wanted it to be multi-species. So we needed something that would work for poultry in the summer, but then was heavy enough to handle pigs in the winter, or if we got into sheep or goats, something like that. So that led to figuring out what components can we get off the shelf. And so that is just an off-the-shelf carport from a company that builds them a little bit heavier. So you can see that's a truss design that's on there, which also helps with the integrity of the structure as it's moving, as opposed to the carports where it's just one piece of tube metal that goes all the way around the top. This company will also sell them to individuals. That's something I learned, that a lot of carport companies only sell to their distributors, and those are the guys that put them together. But these we can order off the shelf. The skid is what we had to design, and me and my brother worked on that for the first two that we built. And so it's a very heavy skid that's built out of 3-inch Schedule 40 galvanized that's on the bottom. And then these crossbars are 2-inch steel. And so it's built heavy enough that we can pretty much pull it any direction, and it's going to maintain its squareness, but yet have the flexibility to contour somewhat to the terrain of the pasture that it's moving over. So it's a balance when you're getting a lot of love there.
Yeah, they can't see on camera, but yeah, a livestock guardian doc here. We'll introduce you in a second. Don't worry. Don't worry.
So, it's a balance between building structures that are strong, but also not so inflexible that they break when you pull them over a hole. So everything has a little bit of play in it that the building can move as it goes across the field.
Gotcha. So how big do you say that? I wanted to go over here while you're talking about those.
Yeah.
How heavy, or what big gauge is that?
So the main skid on this, this is what's called Schedule 40.
Gotcha.
It's 3-inch galvanized.
Those are massive. Definitely the biggest skids I've seen.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said that you got a lot of these parts from a carport manufacturer, is that right?
Yeah, so it's one of the brands that's owned by Shelter Logic. It's called Arrow. You can go on their website, you can configure a carport to any size. This is the widest that we could get, which is 20 feet wide. Our first two prototype ones were 20 by 20s. These we've bumped up to 20 by 24 on the structure. And actually the whole shelter is 20 by 28 because we have overhang on either side.
And about how many birds can you fit in there?
Comfortably, you can run about 400 birds in here all the way through.
All right, let's introduce the pup.
All right.
Sorry, buddy. Who's
so
that?
this is Blake. He is our livestock guardian dog.
I know.
And unfortunately, he likes to travel. He has a frequent flyer card at doggy jail, so he has to be tied up. But very effective. If you
I always try not to pet the livestock guardian dog. Some people are really particular about it.
Oh, no, he's a lover.
Gotcha.
Very effective if you have predation issues with poultry on the skunks, possums, raccoons kind of front. Just having him up here pretty much eliminates all of that. And so he'll move around to whatever set of poultry we need the most help at.
I see another thing that's innovative here. You got netting down here. Can you tell me about
your
netting here?
Yeah, so you know, a problem with some of the pens that are out there is when it runs over birds, it kills them or breaks them up. So the first two prototypes that we built, we used actually floor mats, like you would see in front of a front door.
Yeah,
that are just screwed on.
We use something similar. We use like conveyor belt.
Yeah, and that worked okay, but pigs absolutely destroyed it. They just rip it off. And just the wear and tear of being on the pasture actually rips them apart. You get maybe 2 months out of them before you got to replace them. When we first built them, they were like $9 a piece. Now they're like 26, so it got very expensive. So these are the second generation shelters. Our two prototype ones are down on the other end of the field. This is what we're now building is this style. And for a long time, I wanted to replace the nets with something similar or something better, but still had that effect of if it rolls over the birds, it's not going to hurt them, and we can see what's going on. And so I was just like scrolling Google, just looking at different things, and this picture popped up of like a putt-putt course that's like a pirate themed, and they had all these rigging nets, up. I was like, oh, what about the Pirates of the Caribbean, rigging kind of nets? So found a company in Louisiana that custom makes fishing nets, and looking around their website, and I called them up. I was like, look, guys, I need a net that's out of some of the heaviest stuff you have. So this is 950-pound nylon that it's made out of. And I was like, I only need it 2 feet wide. And they're like, what are you doing with it? And I was like, I'm fishing for chicken. So I explained what we were doing with it. And they're like, yeah, we can make them up, no problem. So they custom made these nets for us. And they work really well that no matter which way the pen's going, it's bi-directional. So we can pull it forward, we can pull it backwards. Those nets will just flip and contour over the terrain. If it runs over a bird, bird's perfectly fine. And then it's sitting over the grass and the ground to keep them from sneaking out. So you notice probably when you walked in here how inside here it's noticeably cooler.
Absolutely.
That's a big problem with some of the other shelters that are out there is they're actually a lot hotter in the shelter than the ambient air temperature. That's why we're moving away from the older style that we're using to these is we need to keep a lower temperature for the birds to prevent those heat casualties. That was a big problem using a lot of the day-to-day tractor style shelters.
And is it because you have so much airflow in here?
Yeah, and also your roof is high. So any of the radiation effect on your roof panel is now 9 feet up in the air, and you've got enough airflow through here that's just going to push that out.
I've seen, a lot of people will run the Salatin style tractors, and they'll see the birds always huddled up in, not underneath the metal roof, and they'll think, what are these birds doing? That's not sheltered, and
it's where it's coolest.
Because it's the coolest right there.
Right, and there's certainly areas where like the Salatin style shelter works just fine. I helped a farm in Maine start back when I was a kid in 2002. It worked great up there because this would be like a hot summer day up there. You get a 100-degree day, which is pretty common in the South and in Texas now. Those pens are going to kill birds. We've had heat losses. You see heat casualties all the time from them. You have to take those extra steps of blocking up the pens, stirring the birds up, maybe withholding feed to lower their metabolism. All stuff that's more labor cost and impacts your growth rate on the birds. So this does away with that heat problem entirely. That we have a lot of airflow through here with the shade, 95% shade cloth that's on the side of these. So this is something else that was custom made to the size that we want. The only thing that we are getting from the carport company is the frame. We don't get the roof from them. We don't get the side kits, any of that. We just want the frame. We're using our own, just sheet metal that we get from a building supplier. And then these shade tarps are custom ordered from another company.
And I know you mentioned about the terrain and unevenness, and I'll note that we're up here on a hill, you know, and so the terrain is not even up here, but it's working for you.
Yeah, and we graze pigs through here. So this field is a lot rougher than a lot of them would be. And you can see if you look along the skid, there's a couple spots where there's a little bit of a hole underneath there, but
yeah, I do see a low spot over here a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it's a.
When the birds are this size, it's not much of a problem. When they're 3 weeks old and just coming out here, we'll just bring some empty mineral bags and just stuff them in those holes if we need to. Basically the same you would have to do with any other shelter. The difference is we are getting 5 Salatin pens worth of capacity in one of these.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of the all-in cost that it took you to construct this?
So these new ones that we're building right now are running about $9,000 a piece.
For everything, all the pieces, all the components and everything?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So it's cheaper than some of the ones that are out there of the bigger shelters.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a significant amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Featherman ones, they're about comparable. Maybe they're a little bit longer, but they're a little bit more expensive too.
What you got to look at is the cost per square foot. And so I was looking at it just a couple weeks ago, like the MRC 600, which is a real big one. These come in at about half the square foot cost. And what makes it really advantageous is we're taking that cost and then we're splitting it in half again, because poultry is paying for half of it, but the pig operation is paying for half of it because they're using it during the winter. So we're splitting that cost even across 2 operations instead of just one. Now, $9,000 is $9,000 to write a check for, but if we have a shelter for the birds in the summer that's also doubling as this shelter for the pigs in the winter, well, we've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. We've taken out a chicken leg and a pork tenderloin with the same shelter.
Love it. What else do you want to cover in this design here?
So like in the brooders, the same drinker line, the same process. We used to have 2 in here. Really isn't necessary, so we've gone down to just having 1. The next thing that we're probably going to try to figure out with this design is feed. So we're just using feather feeder buckets, or Super Bowls. Not the best thing, but it works for now. We've got other problems to solve, mainly getting all of these built right now. And so we're just going to use these for now, but I would imagine at some point in the next year there will be a feeder design that moves with the building as well, so we're not having to come in and manually move the buckets up every time we move them.
It is nice that you have a big open floor though.
Yeah.
Not a lot of
you can walk in here, no headspace. The tractor ones you're having to climb in when you're catching birds. This, a door opens here on the end, so we can back that crate trailer right up to there. Empty crates come off, loaded crates go on. The bird netting opens up. So you probably might not have been able to see it yet, but this is industrial bird netting like you would see in a Costco or something like that. My brother actually turned me onto this material because he was doing this in Costco's for like 2 years, putting this stuff up everywhere. He's like, you just need to do bird netting, man, with hog rings. So it's like hog rings that hold it on, all this stuff. And it works great. I've seen an owl hit this at full speed and it just bounces them right off.
So I see you got the hog rings here.
Yep.
If you guys can see those. So you got a steel cable running up every so often, like on the edges of the bird netting.
So you have a cable around the entire perimeter of where you're going to have the netting. And so your netting is attaching to that. Here we're pulling it down to the hog panel here on the side. And then this is just a basic, flap, let's say, that goes over our entrance and exit area that we can just clip off and just throw to the side when we're loading birds out. So aerial predation is a big problem with birds too. Owls, hawks, eagles, everybody likes chicken. So, the more of them we can keep outside, the better. So now when we switch this to pigs in the fall, winter, all we do is just take the netting off the front and the back. We'll just roll that up, put it in the barn, and then we'll either put a hog panel across there if we want to keep pigs in here, or just put our outside paddock, going out, and they can just scoot in and out underneath the bar.
So where do you get them in at? How do they get in?
The pigs?
Yeah.
Well, we can either bring them in the side door, or if they're like wiener pigs, they'll just go in and out underneath the drawbar.
Right, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. So are you keeping them confined or contained in here at any point in time?
For the past couple winters, we've primarily been using it for weaning pigs. So we will have an outside area that is fenced in with hog panels for them, and then they can go in and out of the building as they please.
Interesting. Well, this is the first you know, mobile or dual-purpose range coop that I've ever seen, and you know, hearing about using it for pigs also, that's pretty different. 10,000 chickens a year. How are you processing them all?
It's all done on farm in an exempted facility that we actually put in our first couple of years here.
And for our audience, what do you mean when you say exempted facility?
Yeah, so the way that poultry works is there's a federal law called the PL 94-492, which is the federal statute on poultry processing. And in that, it contains an exemption for up to 20,000 birds per year, which then the states can add more regulation to that if they choose to do so. So some states are very restrictive. You can't do more than like 100 a year. Virginia, the way that it works here is you can do up to 1,000 a year with no paperwork at all with the state. And then you can apply for an exemption number where they will come out and inspect your setup one time, give you the stamp of approval, give you your exemption number that you then put on your label, and that allows us to do up to 20,000 birds.
Okay, great. Gotcha.
Yeah, so we can do 10,000 broilers, 1,500 turkeys, you know, whatever mixture that we want together, as long as we don't hit that 20,000.
20,000 poultry a year.
Correct.
Interesting. Awesome. And so that's quite a bit of processing on the farm.
Yeah.
How do you organize the labor for that?
So we have our on-farm crew, but then we also have a supplemental crew of part-timers. It's a lot of 15, 16, 17-year-old homeschool kids. Some of them are customers of ours who just want something to do for the summer. You know, we've had professors from George Mason come out for the summer, and you know, they just want something to do with their hands. It's a different crew every year that we put together, but we have about 7 or 8 people that will work on the processing line, and we will do about 400 birds a day when we're processing. So right now, we're running our broilers in sets of 1,300. So about 25% of that will go off to a USDA processor, and the other 75% we will do here on farm over 3 days.
Okay, gotcha. And why are you sending something to the USDA processor again?
So we can ship out of state.
So you can ship out of state, gotcha.
Yep.
Where can people find your products?
So our website for the farm is jlgreenfarm.com. We're running that through GrazeCart, and yeah, it has all of our products that you can get a free shipping directly to your area anywhere in the continental United States.
That's not the end of the video. We got more to see. I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Halftime.
Yeah. So we do have more to see. This poultry operation is pretty awesome. I've never seen anything quite like it, where you have this custom build design that's dual purpose, really innovative stuff. So I know that we talked about trying to go see the cattle as well. Is that where we want to head to next?
Yeah, so we'll walk back. I'll show you the one of these that's under construction.
Okay.
And then we'll circle around to hit the last of the birds that we have in Salatin pens. And then cows on the way back to the house.
Let's go check it out. So you got one in construction. That's super cool.
Yeah. So on our way over here to check out this other MRC we're building, and something I'd like to show everybody on a tour or here for a YouTube video is what I call our control area. That we have woods managed with pigs on one side, and then we have woods without any pigs on the other. So you can see when we started here, this is what our woods look like, overgrown with multiflora rose, raspberry, blackberry bushes, just kind of all the scrub that you would expect from a logged over forest in a regrowth phase. So that's what we start with. And then this is what it ends up looking like over here after 10 years of managing sows in it. So you have this pretty significant reduction of the underbrush and of the smaller saplings, and we're getting that forage growth on the forest floor.
Huge transformation.
There are some interesting discussions about an inherent weakness to like doing it this way right now is we have halted seedling growth of new trees. Basically anything smaller than about 2 inches, the sows are going to eat. So that is something when we look at it in a long-term perspective, we would have to figure out how to replant trees in an area that we're growing pigs. So whether it's like every 50 years, you pull pigs off for 10 years and let the forest reestablish itself, So you get those 3-4 inch saplings regrown before you bring pigs back in.
Yeah.
You have to have inside of your annual rotation that gives ground rest for rest and recovery. You need to have a generational period of rest and recovery as well, where you're going to let that forest regrow itself.
Yeah.
And the other thing we really haven't talked about is what we're really trying to cultivate in these silvopastures is black walnut trees. So a lot of it that was down there, and then up here is black walnut, which is a couple of things from the pig side that's very beneficial. Pigs are tough on trees. They're going to kill trees, but I have yet to see the pigs kill black walnut trees. Like, soil tastes nasty, the bark tastes nasty. The sows will eat the walnuts, but they leave the trees alone. So that's beneficial. They're really shady. That's nice for both cattle and pigs. But where black walnut gets really exciting is it's a triple crop tree. So you have the nuts from it that you can harvest. Not very economical to do so, but that is an option that's out there. Obviously you have the timber ultimately that you can harvest, which is very valuable right now. And then the third thing, which is what we've been doing for the last 3 years, is black walnut syrup, which retails for about $700 a gallon. So it's a very niche type of syrup, has a very high retail point. We don't have any sugar maples here, so any kind of syrup production in maple is just not an option for us, but we have about 300 black walnut trees on the farm that we can tap every winter and produce black walnut syrup. So if we can, off of a 2-acre area like this, we can have 7 to 10 days of grazing 60 mama cows on it per year. 2 weeks of moving sows or feeder pigs through the area a year. And then during the winter, harvest probably about 4 gallons of syrup came off of this area. So about 2 gallons of syrup per acre. That's a lot of different revenue streams coming in from just one area. So we're back here on the back part of our farm. This is what we would call the triangle field, actually, the old historical name for it. And we've got some sow shelters down there, farrowing shelters, that are used during the winter. It's a neighbor's property up on the ridge where they run cows and make hay. And then you can't see it from here, but we've got pigs in the woods back behind. You can probably hear them. Might be able to hear them a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the piglets back there fighting over dinner.
Cool. And then you got a piece of construction here. This is what we came over here to see, yeah?
Yep. So this is what we call our dry dock. Now the one drawback we could say with the DPRCs is you have to build them in the fields that they're going to live in. They are 20 feet wide, not that easy to put them on a trailer and move them around. We've got an idea of how we would do that if we need to disassemble them, but it's not something that we're going to just do super casually. So we're building them back here for the squadron of them that we'll have here that can operate on this field and another couple fields down this way. So this is kind of our area that we're building 4 of them. This was our Memorial Day weekend project right here, was putting this one together.
So you're going to build all 4 in this field?
Yeah, we're going to build them actually right there because that's about the most level spot that we could find out here. So this is 2 guys, 2 days to get to this point.
Not too
so
bad.
2 guys with 3 days could entirely build them and have them ready to go. The frame for these is now being manufactured for us by a fabrication shop. So we've worked with them, got the design on CAD where they can manufacture them the same every time. They're building about 1 of those a week for us right now, so we can pick them up, bring them here, assemble them together, put together the frame of the carport, get that bolted down, get the roof on, etc. So what's left for this one is just putting on the bird netting, the shade cloth on the side, and then the nets on the front and back.
Nice.
And it's ready to go. So it's a lot of little pieces put together.
So will you be scaling up past 10,000?
It really depends on the market. If there's more demand, sure, we can go up to 20,000. But you try not to overrun your headlights, especially with poultry, because you don't have that bleed off of the stockyard. If you produce too many cattle, you can just sell them to the stockyard or somebody else. But if you produce 5,000 too many chickens, you're kind of stuck with them. So.
Yeah. Have you had any trouble marketing your poultry?
I mean, like anything, you're in competition with other businesses. And so you have that problem of competition. but it has never been like a problem from quality or not having enough birds kind of thing. So it's just like selling anything else, making sure you're keeping pace with demand, maybe a little bit ahead of your demand, but not overrunning it so much that you wake up one morning and you've got $500,000 worth of chicken in the freezer and you're like, what have we done?
So is poultry your the biggest split of your revenue, would you say?
No,
or?
it's actually be number 3. It's beef, pork, then poultry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yep. You can see here as we walk by, this is what a weaning pen looks like. We just sent off most of the piglets from this the other day. So it's just these 2 that are in here. But like other things, it's done on pasture. We move it around every set of piglets that we do. So that's where they were before, and then we're going to give that area.
So they were over here.
Yeah, we previously had a weaning pen right there. This group was here for about a month, and then we'll break it down, move it to probably just the next spot down, but we can move it around wherever we need to just by setting up these hog panels using 1/2-inch rebar to hold it together, and just zip ties. No wire or anything like that.
See, so I'll show folks. So you got just rebar zip tie and hog panel, so you
Yep.
can set it up wherever you want.
Yep.
What are the other essential elements of your weaning pen?
So some kind of feeder, which right now it's upside down. There's just 2 of them, so they just get a scoop of feed a day. This is a simple drinker made out of a 55-gallon plastic barrel that we use. So it has the float valve behind that baffle there, so that's so they can drink, and then you have your float valve so they can't get back there and mess with it. And then just whatever kind of shade or shelter you've got. An
So
old
that's
$300 wagon from an auction that we just pile all the hog panels on, and the pigs don't care. It works just fine.
And there's no electric fence in here, but do you usually run electric fence when you're weaning them like this, or?
If it's a group that we're keeping for ourselves, yes, we will train them to fence in here. Groups that we send off to other farms, we don't train to electric.
Let them do that?
Yep. Yeah, so this is one of our only flat fields on the farm, right down by our little creek that runs through here. So we make hay on this field usually once a year, and this is one of the best spots to run our Salatin style shelters. So this is the last of our initial fleet that we built 10, 12, 14 years ago. A term that we had in the military was legacy fleet. And so this is kind of our legacy fleet of shelters that we're just going to use until they are completely broken and done. And hopefully by that time we will have transitioned to our next generation. So this is what we've got left. So we've got turkeys on one side of them here. So these are probably about 8 weeks old. So they came out of the brooder when we cleaned that out and put that new set in there. These will come out of the pens probably in another week or so and go into a netting type of paddock system. But we found it's effective to put those young turkeys in pens for 3-4 weeks just to let them grow up a little bit more and not have predator issues and still that little piling tendency in the back of their mind that they might have. So that's what's going on with these guys. And then over on this side, we have a line of broilers going. So, like all farmers, we're behind on projects. We should have all of our new MRCs constructed and operating, but we don't yet. So we're having to use some of these pens for broilers here.
And about how old did you say these are?
These guys are 7 weeks old. So they start, might be 6.5 weeks old.
Yeah.
They are going to start being butchered next Monday.
And how old, what about the pens themselves? How long have you been using these, you say?
Probably about 10 years.
10 years, that's holding up pretty good for 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah, well, and they've gone under several retrofits over the years. You can see we moved away from using the chicken wire on the sides to the heavier duty hardware cloth. We upbuilt the front of them to a 5/4 by 6 board. So these ones have had a lot of maintenance done to them over the last 10 years, but they're still going, so can't complain about that.
Nice. And how many do they hold? How many chickens do they hold?
We put about 70 in each one, 70, 75.
Okay, nice.
And probably like all the viewers have seen on farms that use these, and move one spot forward every day. And so they actually started all the way back on the other side of that field, and that was a set of chickens ago. So we've already run one complete set through them, and then this is the second set. And hopefully it'll be the last group that we have to put through these, especially when we get into the hotter part of the summer.
You know, favorite thing and least favorite thing about using the Salatin style tractors?
Yeah, probably the favorite thing is that you really don't need equipment out here to move them. You can send one person out to move pens, and when you get them trained up, you can get that down to like a 4 or 5 minute average move time per pen. We can move them from field to field by putting them on a trailer and toting them around. It's cumbersome, it's work, but it can be done.
So they're really portable?
They're fairly portable. Now these we all built over 10 years ago when the build cost was maybe about $400 a pen. That's probably double that now. The cost of aluminum has just gone completely through the roof. And that was one of the deciding factors to switch over to the MRC model that we're doing. Is these used to be a very economical on a square footage cost to build. They're still fairly low cost per square foot, but not when you consider that now we have a dual purpose structure. So these run for 6 months out of the year, then you got to put them on the edge of the field all winter and make sure you put cow fence around them so the cows don't go in and destroy them. During the off season, and then you got to pull them out in the spring, do a bunch of repairs to them, try to get them ready for the next year. So it's going to make that process a lot simpler for us. That at the end of the season, it's not this big put away movement, and then in the spring a big pull out, repair everything, get them staged up type of movement.
Gotcha. And then what not so favorite things about them? Any challenges?
Our number one issue is heat. Yeah, we get a lot of not Texas heat, where it's 110 degrees for 100 days out of the summer. Yeah. But Virginia, especially here in the valley, we get very humid heat where it'll be 95 degrees and 98% humidity, and it's just sweltering out here in the summer. And if you're not extremely careful with this type of pen, you can have, I've seen a 50% mortality event in Salatin pens. Yeah. That if you're not paying attention to heat, and especially if you've got 8-week-old birds, they're going to roll over. We've had days that have been hot enough that we've just propped up the side of the pen entirely and just let the birds out and just let them spread out and find shady spots and cool off. Because Cornish cross birds, they are on a genetic breeding program that essentially shaves 1 day of growth every 3 years of genetic work that's done on advancing the genetics of the bird. What that means is their metabolism is running higher and higher and higher on a per day basis, which means they're throwing off a lot more heat than a bird 50 years ago was. Now you're accomplishing in 45 days what used to take 65 days or even 100 days. So parameters start to change that you have to kind of adapt, and heat management has been probably one of the bigger problems with these. Right. And I'm not 25 anymore. Going out and pulling 40, 50 pens when you're in your 40s feels a lot different than when you were 22. I can tell you that. So,
yeah, moving these manually, not
it
easy.
Keeps you in shape. Yeah, it's a good little workout, but if it's pouring rain out here, you're not happy, it's for sure.
And I see you got 5-gallon buckets on the top of each of these. Can
yes.
you tell me a little bit about that?
That's just what we're holding the water in. So a lot of places is how it's done is you have the 5-gallon pail that, like right now with these 7-week-old birds, we're having to fill this 3 times a day. So someone's having to come out here when we move them in the morning, fill it, lunchtime, and then later in the afternoon, they got to get a top off. Again, there are automatic systems that folks have put in, but it is just one more thing on the labor side that now we're having to dedicate a lot of labor to monitoring the pens, making sure the water's working, being very situationally aware of each individual pen, what's going on, that you don't have some kind of malfunction. And that was a different problem when you could get farm kids for $5 an hour, to come out and work. Right now we're having to pay teenagers $15 an hour, 15, 16-year-old kids for a summer job. They're going to make that working at the local gas station. And so the labor market has changed. It feels like the genetics have changed a little bit over the last decades. And even the environment is changing a little bit, that it's more days that are hot that you have to deal with than it seems like there were in the past. So for all those reasons, and just the economy of cost, all that comes together to a point where you have an inflection of, all right, do we continue a legacy model by reinvesting, or do you break away from that and go in a different direction. And so for poultry, that's what we're doing at this point.
All right. Well, as you scale, I think that definitely makes sense to make that shift.
Yeah, you know, if you're doing 10,000 birds in these kind of pens, you're running at least 50 pens to handle that. So that's just a lot of pens, a lot of maintenance, a lot of moving, which can be done. I mean, a lot of farms do it. When I was at Polyface, they were doing easily 20,000 birds a year. But it's a different ballgame now, and we're trying to keep up with the times. So
yeah, cool. Well, this has been super fascinating. We have one more enterprise to see, folks. We're gonna head over to where Jordan is making the most of his money with the cattle sales. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, beef sales. Beef sales.
Right.
Yes.
Beef sales.
Some cattle sales too, though. We do sell the calves, as I'm sure we'll discuss when we get over there. So here we are at our kind of last stop for the tour, and we were actually at the neighbor's place. We've got a neat kind of deal here where our neighbors are letting us graze their yard, and so as we're moving the cow herd along, we have a arrangement where we can bring them across one neighbor's backyard. We give them a couple steaks a year, and then we'll stop the herd in another neighbor's yard for about a 2-acre little field that they've got going on here, and we'll graze the cows here for a couple days, depending on how much grass, and then we'll move them actually down the road to get back to our home place where we can repeat the rotation around the farm. So it's easier to go around a circle than having to double back all the time in your pasture rotation. So in the first couple of years, we definitely got a lot of interesting looks from folks driving by to see a herd of 70 cows with one strand of electric fence keeping them off the road, and they're basically grazing right there by the road. But it's worked out pretty neat.
And how do the cattle fit in? I know we talked about this earlier, but how do the cattle fit into your land management practices here?
Yeah, all of it. It's interesting. Every part of a whole is a contributing factor, but really the bow that ties everything together is cattle or some kind of herbivore. That you can put chickens on pasture, and that's great for the chickens. You can put pigs on pasture or in a silvopasture, and that's great for the pigs. But they're always giving you a gift of manure, highly fertile manure that you can use for something else. Now, some places people grow crops with that. In a lot of places, you can grow very high quality grass with those manures that the pigs and chickens are putting down. So if you have an herbivore to harvest that grass, that really puts the cherry on top of your pasture management system, that you have an animal of an herbivore, and we'll say cows for our example here, that can convert the cellulose material of grass into protein that we can digest. It's really, herbivores are, when you get into the talk of sustainability and mimicking nature and what's the lowest carbon footprint of everything, it's an herbivore because there's no corn coming in, there's no soybeans. All that they need is a little bit of electric fence and minerals. Minerals is the only off-site resource that's being regularly consumed by an herbivore. And so for us, cattle is where it all kind of comes together, that we're using the poultry to fertilize pasture for the cattle. We're using pigs to disturb pasture to plant in high-value summer annuals so that we can feed more cows. Cows is what it's kind of all about, and not that we really need them, but we would be mowing down a lot of grass if we didn't have some kind of herbivore here on the farm.
Awesome. So they complete the circle.
Circle of life.
And they're coming to say hello and goodbye to us, it looks like.
Yeah, they're kind of in that, is he going to move us today phase? There's still plenty of grass left here, and they're scheduled to be moved tomorrow morning, but they're definitely going to come over and see what's going on. You never know, the candy man might be here, ready to move you to the next paddock.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about your herd, just what you're running exactly, how you set this up?
Yeah, so our market is for beef, right? So we're wanting to produce high quality beef cuts that we can sell. A problem that we encountered early on was that we needed about 2 to 3 cows worth of ground beef for every 1 cow of steak that we had. And so you end up putting you either end up accumulating a bunch of steak. We got a little rain shower going on.
Sorry about that.
Sun shower. you end up either accumulating a bunch of steak or you have to put whole animals into ground. So one of the things I got into early on was the Bud Williams school of thought, the buy high or buy low, sell high, the sell buy system versus a buy sell system, and also that there is always an undervalued animal on the market. There's always an overvalued class of cattle, and there's always an undervalued one. And as a producer, you always want to be selling, obviously, the overvalued and buying the undervalued. In most cattle markets, a class of animals that has always been undervalued is cull cows or pound cows, depending on where you are. So these are breeding cows that are either old and are being retired out of a herd, they didn't breed, or for some reason, they upset the rancher's wife and she wants that cow gone. Sitting at a stock sale, any given day, about 10 to 20% of the animals that are coming through the pound sale are animals that still have a lot of gas left in the tank. They're still fairly healthy regardless of their age. They might be a little thin because most cow calves are being run on low quality forage and being pushed hard, so they don't have a lot of grass. So she's a little bit thin because she's been putting her resources into the calves like a good mama cow, but they're always undervalued. You'd have a 1,200 pound cull cow being sold for, let's say 70 cents a pound, whereas a 500 pound stocker was being sold for $2 a pound. Prices have elevated now. Now it's a different set of prices. Pound cow might be 90 cents to $1 a pound, but that stocker calf is now $3.50. Might be knocking on $4 before we know. That old cow, she's got a lot of experience under her belt. She's grazed for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years. She's overwintered through many winters. She knows how to take care of herself, how to thrive on lower quality forages if necessary. And also, we're careful not to get the crazy ones, but a lot of them, they're just ready to enjoy a little bit of retirement. They're not looking to go anywhere too crazy. They just want to have a good life. So combining kind of all of that together, that we needed more ground beef and roasts than we needed steak. There's this chronically undervalued class of animals at the stock sale because there's no return value for backgrounders or feeders or what have you. And it's an animal that is easier to take care of, easier to overwinter, thrives on lower quality forage if necessary, and just an easier maintenance animal. That led us to start a cull cow herd. And so that's what we've been doing exclusively for probably the last 8 years now, that we are buying cull cows. We've developed relationships locally where we're getting about half of them from cow-calf producers around us. In the fall, when they sort through their cows, they'll call me up and say, hey, we've got 20 in the pen. Do you want to come look at them? And I can go pick out the ones that I think that would work well for us. But about half of them we're still getting from the stock sale as well. So we're going up there, watching as they're coming through, being very disciplined when you're buying. It's only 10 to 20% of the animals fit what we're looking for. And we put together in the fall of every year these groups of cows that we are going to graze for a year, kind of like we were if we were going to buy a 700 pound stocker and graze it for a year. After they've been here for a year, then we'll send them to slaughter. And what we've learned along the way is we have about a 45% calving rate out of these cull cows. They're not preg checked when they're sold. They're just going to go to Taco Bell 2 days later. But when we bring them back here, about half of them are going to drop a calf. So those cows we will push to the next spring. So we'll hold them for actually 18 months instead of just 12. But we have this free calf. And right now, ones that we bought last fall, we're buying that 1,200 pound cow, let's say for $1 a pound. So we're paying $1,200 for it. We're gonna sell a 400 pound calf this fall that she dropped for $3, $3.50 a pound. So essentially, we've recovered our money already just from selling that calf. And now whatever quality meat we get out of that carcass is just the gravy on top after we've paid for just our expenses of keeping her on the farm.
Fascinating, yeah. It's an innovative model. I haven't seen too many farms doing that. And so you're getting the benefit of having the land management tool with the cattle, and then also the sales on the top end.
Yeah, and you can see they have already slicked up and are looking, pretty nice. Like, these are cows that are sold as cast-offs from other herds that are just looking for a little love, some good grass, some good minerals, and we did some testing in the early years on carcass yields and stuff, and we're getting an average of about 300 pounds a gain on a pound cow when we bring them here, if we buy them light. We really don't like to buy anything heavier than like 1250, ideally in that 1,000, 1,100 pound range, but that's frankly just hard to get now. Like, cow frames have gotten so big that you just have to sometimes do bigger ones, but that 1,200 pound cow, when we send her in the next fall, she'll be 1,550 pounds.
Jordan, any parting words before we go about just what your thoughts are on farming in general?
There's a lot of opportunity out there right now. Something I've said for years is the problem is there's almost too much opportunity, and you have to pick what you want to do. For folks who are willing to get after it, do the work, be creative, not get locked in legacy mindsets from the last 100 years. Do stuff that's a little bit weird, try and fail at stuff. Doors will open that. Like she said, doors will open for you to pastures yet ungrazed. So yeah, just be encouraged if you're trying to get into this, that it's a great time, especially to be a young person in agriculture.
Awesome. I think the cattle agree. They're coming to bid our audience farewell.
Here we go. This is the lead cow right here, 113. She's kind of famous around here.
There's always one, isn't there?
That's right. She's been here for 7-8 years.
Okay, so what a beautiful farm. Jordan, thanks so much for showing us around.
Absolutely.
Here at J&L Green Farm here in Edinburg, Virginia. You're doing amazing things. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe right now. Just do us a big favor, do yourself a big favor, subscribe to this channel and follow us along for more farm tours like this. If you can, please make a contribution to support our channel by clicking the donate button right here on this YouTube channel. Heifer USA is a part of Heifer International. We are a nonprofit organization, and we do all this work to bring all this educational content to support small-scale farmers and the regenerative agriculture movement in the United States, and we need your support to make that to continue to happen. And if you like this video, please check out this video over here where we toured Hickory Nut Gap Farm. I mentioned that one earlier. If you want to see another farm tour, check that one out. And if you like this type of content, learning about regenerative agriculture, check out this video next, all about how to get into raising them yourself.